Alright guys, welcome to episode 16 of the Think Gold podcast. Today we have a unique guest today. He is someone who you probably wouldn't first expect to be on the Think Gold podcast, but hey, he's here. He got a lot of knowledge. He's a great dude. His name is Jeb McAfee. And Jeb, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man.
Yeah?
I'm doing good. So I'll just give you a little introduction real quick.
Okay.
So Jeb, he was born in 2000. Yeah, he's a 2000 baby. He's crazy. He's 20 years old and has managed to build himself his own company where he teaches people about the ins and outs of Bitcoin trading. He is one of the top, if not the top, cryptocurrency YouTuber on YouTube and has managed to build a full-time income off the Bitcoin ecosystem. So he has his own business, and I've got to know Jeb just from my brother Caleb, and Caleb's brother, he's letting me stay at his house, and I got to meet Jeb, and I got to learn about, kind of what you do, and, about your business and how you got into it, and so it's really fascinating. So welcome to Think Gold, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, bro. So I want this to be kind of like a conversation. I'm not really used to camera being right here, and I'm used to being on Zoom, so this is a little weird. So
yeah, no, I know for me too. I don't know where to look because I'm normally looking at a camera or at a face. I don't know where.
I'm gonna have to adjust my eyes a little bit. So if this is weird for y'all, let me get a little used to it. I'll try to get comfortable.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it. So
Awesome.
First part, setting the stage for success, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say where you're at in your life right now, you've reached some type of success, right?
I'd say so.
Yeah. And so I want to talk about how you got to this point in your life, right? So talk to me a little bit about growing up.
So growing up, I had a really kind of tumultuous past because my mother and father divorced when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
The last time I saw her was when I was 5.
Wow.
So it was just my dad and I for a long time. And then my dad had this grand vision of me and him moving all across the country and him remodeling houses. He was in construction. And then I was 8 years old when 2008 happened. Him being in construction, 2008, the housing crisis happened, and he got wrecked. So we tried to go and live with some family, and unfortunately it didn't work out. So we had our adventures, but it was a little bit rough. But through all of it, I learned just how important it is to have people. Yeah. Because if it weren't for my dad, I wouldn't be anywhere. So gotta start with a shout out to him.
No, for sure. What was that relationship like with your dad growing up?
It was really, in some ways, it was the best relationship that you could hope for out of a father figure. Yeah. In other ways, it was difficult because there's this storybook mentality of when you're struggling financially, when you're growing up, that you're gonna everybody's gonna kind of come together and huddle together, and then all of a sudden poverty. I had this wild idea when I was in elementary school that poverty brought families together, and that is so not true. That is the absolute antithesis of how that works, because when people are struggling with the things as intrinsic as how to put food on the table, it becomes very hard to be emotionally available for your kids. So I relied very heavily on my father, and I have always said that he did a better job than anyone in his position possibly could have. Wow. But there was a lot of challenges.
Wow. So you talked about poverty. You grew up in poverty. Mm-hmm. Did you start there and up there, or was that kind of?
My dad and I were doing pretty well up until 2008, and then when the housing market crashed, a lot of people got very badly hurt. The housing market put tens of millions of people out of work. It decimated retirement funds. It really messed with people, and we had something very similar happen to us. It happened to a lot of people, and unfortunately there are a lot of people that are still recovering from that. It happened, it was 12 years ago now, but I remember it like it was yesterday, and many people that are older than you or I definitely do.
Man, that's tough. I know when I was there, my grandma was actually flipping homes around that time.
Really?
I remember being real young.
I didn't know that.
She had a really big house, right?
Yeah.
All to herself. She had people running out the basement, and I remember going over there as a little kid, like, wow, oh my gosh, grandma, wow, you're doing really good for yourself. Mm-hmm. Mind you, a year later, she went bankrupt, and she had to sell that house. Actually, that house ended up getting foreclosed on, and it was just really rough, seeing her go through that. Wow. So I'm sure, with your dad, being involved in the home improvement business, that was really tough for y'all.
Absolutely, yeah. He was a single dad trying to raise a kid. It was one of those things where he would always say he didn't cause the problem, but he was the one that was suffering for it. And that's poignant, and it's sad. I think it's something a lot of people can relate with.
What do you think that did to you, seeing that?
It definitely set the stage for it. I mean, everyone's childhood sets the stage for who they'll become. I think that's kind of a cop out of an answer. So let me answer that a little differently. It was very challenging, but I wouldn't trade it for anything, is another way of saying that. There were so many things that I learned through the hardship that we went through. And again, I want to iterate again since we're talking about this. Nothing that happened was in any way, shape, or form my dad's fault. No one could have done better, period. I've never seen another human being do what he did. That being said, that doesn't mean it was easy. And there are a lot of things that you learn when you go through trying times. And I don't find a lot of people maturing very quickly through easy times. Yeah. There's that whole, I mean, you see it on Instagram all the time. It's kind of cliche, but the idea of strong men create easy times. Exactly. Easy times create weak men. Weak men create hard times create strong men create easy times, and the cycle repeats. Well, they were hard times, and it made me stronger. It made me figure out what's important in life. It made me figure out what you have to do to get where you need to be in life. It made me figure out how important relationships are, how important God is, and at the end of the day, how easy you can lose things and make sure to count your blessings.
Wow, I feel like when you grow up in that situation, you wake up, and I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, you wake up in poverty, and it's like every day is like an example of what you don't want to see in your future. Yeah. Right? It's kind of like serves like that reminder of like you wake up like, okay, this is not what I want my future to look like, my vision to look like. That's what it becomes. But a lot of times when you're growing up, and it's not, I don't define myself by the way I grew up, but when you're in the midst of it, especially when you're younger, it's harder to realize because you don't have perspective what you're doing. I remember one time in middle school, I was in 6th grade. My dad said that we were poor, and I didn't know what poor meant. Yeah, I'm like, what do you mean we're poor, Dad? I was like, we live in America. Yeah. Like, we have each other. We have our dog. What do you mean we're poor? And he said, no, Jeb, look around. Wow, we're poor. Wow. From that day forward, we were poor. And I looked around, I was like, wait a second, it doesn't look the same here that it does at school. It doesn't look the same here as it does on television. Something is different. Yeah. So you don't even really realize that for a long period of time. And that's just one of those things that you don't really know if you haven't been there. That's all you know, right?
Yeah, it's all you know. I mean, what am I supposed to know,
Like growing up with, just my mom in the household, that's all I know.
Right.
All I knew.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you're so used to this, that, and you go to like your friend's house and you see them with, both parents. You're like, wow, this is different. You know what I'm saying? Like, wow, you got your mom wondering about your homework. You know what I'm saying? Your dad. It's like, wow, it's just so crazy how everybody, grows up in a different situation, and that situation, dictates how they view the world. And I feel like it's on us. It's if you fall victim to your circumstance, like you can't blame it on anybody but yourself. Right. You know what I'm saying?
I think, absolutely, and that's the key takeaway is that I talk about my past sometimes. Like I don't talk about it a whole lot because it's still kind of recent, and I'm emotionally over it and I've grown through it. But my dad is we're still recovering from everything. Yeah. But it's really, really important that people don't say, I can't get myself out of this. I was born like this. My dad always told me, Jeb, you didn't raise up, don't ever grow up and use the way that you grew up as an excuse for anything. He told me, don't ever say that, oh, well, I didn't have a mom, therefore. Or, oh, I grew up not doing the best, therefore I'm gonna not work hard because that's how things went with my dad was a hard worker. That's a bad example, but you get my point. He said, never use your past as a justification for how you live your present.
How many people have that just like internal warfare, right? Everyone. They just always have that in their mind.
It's this culture of excuses. It's this culture of excuses.
Well, let's move forward with that, right? So, growing up the way you did, what was that turning point for you where you said, if my dad's not able to change, our circumstances, I'm going to start to take it into my own hands. How were you able to,
Yeah, so that kind of goes back to the origin of the channel, because the channel was where this kind of all started, and I've made this very clear on the YouTube channel that, hey, this YouTube channel changed my life, changed the lives of a lot of people around me, and I'm very, very, very grateful for it. One very isn't enough. Yeah. It was summer of 2017, and I was sitting in my back room watching YouTube, and I saw a video by a guy named Crypto Nick. He's not really people don't talk about him anymore in the crypto space. He got involved with a Ponzi scheme, got sued. It was really interesting to watch. His channel crashed and burned, but when I saw him, he was doing really well. He was making like $250,000 a month.
How old was he?
A year older than me. Wow. He's 21 today.
So
at the time he was 18.
And you were 17.
I was 7. Actually, I was 16 still. Wow. At the time, he was still 17. He wasn't even an adult yet, I don't think. But I couldn't. He was 17, 18, whatever. But the point is, he was making like so much money. And I saw a video by him and he said, how I make $30,000 a month mining Bitcoin on Genesis Mining. And I said, you know what? I kind of want to make $30,000 a month not doing anything on Genesis Mining. What's Genesis Mining, you know? So I watched the video and sure enough, this dude is making 30 grand a month. You can see it on his screen from this thing called Genesis Mining.
Yeah, the cash on the screen?
Yeah. No, he was showing it. He was making $1,000 a day.
Wow.
And he's like, yeah, by the way, I'm 18, not to flex or anything, humble brag, you know? And he, so I kept watching the video and just something in me clicked. I wasn't a Christian back then, I was an agnostic, but that was the Lord helping me back then because I just knew that my entire life had just changed. I cannot express this to people in a way that doesn't sound like I'm full of it. I hear people say this kind of stuff sometimes and I'm like, you're making that up, that didn't happen. But I remember the visceral feeling of my life just changed.
But like, okay, you said you saw the YouTube video and you realized like, okay, I want to do this too.
Yeah.
And so you started learning more about it, you became knowledgeable about it, and you feel like your life just changed because of that?
Yeah, I felt like so there's a lot of things that block people from their ultimate purpose in life.
Yeah.
And in my case, the one thing that was blocking me from figuring out the other things that were blocking me was a lack of finances. It's very hard to figure out what your purpose is in life if you don't know how to get food on the table.
That's great.
So the Lord helped me figure out how to get food on the table, and then now He's helping me with all the other stuff. Now that's not a problem anymore.
Okay.
So that was 3.5 years ago, and from that day, I went around and made like 8 different accounts because I'm like most people. I know that if I just say I'm gonna do it tomorrow, I'm not gonna do it tomorrow.
No.
It's not gonna happen. Back then, especially, I wouldn't have done it. Like I'm a little different now, but so what I did is I went around and I made so many accounts. I watched like 30 of his videos, stayed up till like midnight. So I made a ton of accounts on different websites that he was using for mining. It was anyone in crypto, Genesis Mining, Hashflare, Coinbase. I made a Gmail account for it, all kinds of different accounts. And I'm like, okay, well, I have the accounts, therefore I'm going to use them. It worked.
Yeah.
So I just started studying it, and I bought my first cryptocurrency. It wasn't even Bitcoin, it was actually Litecoin about a month later, and started the channel 6 months later.
Okay.
And I realized, like, I'm the kind of guy that would sit around and watch YouTube videos all day. So I just was like, you know what? This is interesting to me.
Self-taught.
Yeah. So I was like, this is interesting to me. So I'm just going to watch some YouTube videos on crypto instead. And look, and then I watched 3,000 hours of YouTube videos.
Wow. Can you explain to us before we get deep into Bitcoin, cryptocurrency? Can you give us like a basic foundation of what cryptocurrency is and Bitcoin is?
Sure. Yeah. So Bitcoin is a form of currency that is based on a distributed ledger. So let's say you and I. And let's say we have a third party. Let's say we got a guy named Evan sitting with us, right? So we got you, me, and Evan.
Okay.
And we're trying to, we loan each other money. But we all want to make sure that if somebody loans someone money, then we'll make sure that the money is kept track of where it's supposed to be going.
Okay.
So the way that we do that is instead of just relying on our word, because you never know, one of us might lie.
Yeah.
What happens if you and me, what happens if I make a loan to you and you say, no, I never took that loan, I don't owe you money? Then we're at a standstill because democratically we both have one vote, right? Mm-hmm. And then we have to get physical or something. And I don't want that. You want me, dude. Huge. So what we do is we have a ledger. Yeah. So you have a ledger of all the transactions that have happened. I have a ledger of all the transactions that have happened, and our friend Evan over there has a ledger of all the transactions that have happened. Okay. Then if you try and say, nah, Jeb, I didn't take a loan from you, then Evan will say, wait a minute, my ledger says you did. My ledger says you did, yours says it didn't because you're lying. 2-1 outvotes you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Okay, so what is that labeled as right there?
So that's called the distributed ledger. Okay. In Bitcoin, everybody who has a wallet, in the same way that you have a physical wallet with US dollars in it, you have a wallet where you hold your money. Mm-hmm. In Bitcoin, everyone has a wallet where they hold their Bitcoin. And when you have a wallet, you also, with that wallet, have a ledger. So you have a history in your wallet built into it of every transaction that's ever happened in the history of the cryptocurrency. So all of a sudden, instead of having you, me, and Evan, that's 3 people, then you have millions of people. Wow. So no one can come around and say, I didn't do that. Well, no, the rest of the world says you did. Because everybody logs a transaction on their ledger whenever a transaction happens. Okay.
And so how does that differ from what exactly a Bitcoin is?
So that ledger keeps track of where the Bitcoin goes. Okay. So that's one of the building blocks of Bitcoin is that it's decentralized. It's called decentralized because there's not a central authority like the US government, for example, that says, no, you did make that transaction. Instead, it's decentralized in the way that we all say, no, you made that transaction. Okay. So that's the core tenet. Okay. The second point of Bitcoin is that Bitcoin has a limited supply. And the reason I'm giving you both of these examples is because people ask, well, why use Bitcoin over US dollars? This is why I use Bitcoin over US dollars or anything else, and why it is growing so quickly and will be a big part of our economic future.
Okay.
That it's decentralized, so it can't be tyrannized in the same way that the US dollar could be.
Okay.
The Federal Reserve can do whatever they want with the US dollar, we have no power over it. So that can be used as an iron fist over the people, and it has been in history. The other reason why it's important is because Bitcoin has a limited supply coded into it. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin created. The Federal Reserve has printed, through the buying of bonds, 9 trillion US dollars.
So the Federal Reserve created Bitcoin?
No. A man, woman, or entity, we don't know, named Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin in 2009.
Wow, and how much was it worth in 2009?
0, because no one cared about it.
Wow.
And then a few years later, it was worth $1. A few years later, it was worth $100. And then right now, it's worth about $20,000.
Okay, so how old were you when you got your first Bitcoin?
I was, 17.
17.
Mm-hmm.
And it cost how much at that time?
When I got into cryptocurrency, so the first Bitcoin I bought, it would have been around $4,500 a Bitcoin. When I got into crypto, Bitcoin was trading at $2,900 a coin.
Okay.
So now it's trading at $19,000 at the time of this.
So how many Bitcoins do you have right now?
Several.
Okay, all right. So he's thinking gold right now. He's thinking gold. So let's carry the conversation on a little bit. So you talked about, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and when was that point where you realized it was changing your life?
That point was probably when the channel finally got monetized,
Okay.
because for the first 8 months of running the channel got started mid-November of 2017.
Yeah.
Until June of 2018, the channel wasn't monetized. We had 8,500 subscribers. You're supposed to get monetized at 1,000.
What were you doing on your channel?
Cryptocurrency content. So we made
teaching
videos.
people how to kind of
Basically exactly what we're doing right now. I would read the charts and I'd tell people, this is what the market's doing, this is the trade you might want to make.
So you became, and you were how old when you started that YouTube?
I was 17.
17.
Mm-hmm.
And when you first saw that video of that first Bitcoin that really drew your attention, how old were you?
I was 16. I was about to turn 17.
Okay, so in that year, you gained enough knowledge to be able to teach it to other people?
So I saw that video when I was 16, because it was July 31st, 2017.
Yeah.
The first video went up on the channel November 16th, 2017. So only like 4 months later did I start the channel when I got in. And then when the channel first got monetized, it was June of 2018, which was 8 months later.
Okay.
Those first 8 months, I put a video up every single day and didn't make a penny.
Wow. What motivated that?
I just knew that if I stuck with one thing, and I picked one thing, guys, this is so important. Everybody wants to go out and start 20 different businesses instead of picking one thing and sticking with it. Nobody built an empire by trying to start 20 empires at the same time. 20 different leaders built the same empire over the course of hundreds of years, but we're going to try and start 20 different businesses in 6 months. The idea of millionaires having 7 streams of income is a joke.
Yeah.
Billionaires have 7 streams of income. They got 700 streams of income because they have people they can delegate that to. But your average millionaire isn't as wealthy as people think they are. It's a lot easier to make $1 million than you think it is. You just have to pick something and stick to it. And I knew that if I picked one thing that I knew was lucrative, because that guy was making $6 million a year at 18 doing it, the market was proven.
Wow, that's insane.
I knew he could do it.
Yeah.
So I figured if I just stuck with it, it'd pan out. So I picked one thing. If you take anything away from this is the most important thing. You pick one thing and you stick to that. The grass isn't greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it. I learned that from Sam Robbins.
That's a word. That's a word. Okay, so your YouTube channel, you said it was being monetized, so you're making some money, right? And so, with this YouTube channel growing, what did that do to your mindset, right? Like, because we're really big on mindset here, right?
Absolutely.
As a young child, obviously, the way you grew up, I'm sure there was a lot of holes in your mindset, right? And so how did finding, the success in YouTube, like what did that start to do to your mind? As you're going through the process, what are you realizing is happening to your mindset?
Right. So one of the first things with that is that your mindset is so much more than your money. And I'm going to answer that question, but I'm also going to answer a little bit differently too, because I learned a lot about my mindset from the financials. But the biggest thing that changed my mindset was actually when I didn't have to worry about money because I could put food on the table and pay the bills for my dad and I.
Yeah.
When I was able to do that, it freed me up to start figuring out other issues with mindset. Family, relationships, God, friends, culture, politics. There are so many things that you have to understand moving into this world. This is the most complicated world that humans have ever lived in. And it's much more than just money.
Yeah.
So when I finally was making some money and quite frankly, I had huge confidence problems because of the way I grew up. Having 20, 30,000 subscribers helped a little bit with that. No, I'm not gonna lie, it helped a little bit. So that helped a lot. The immediate short-term impact of that was it wasn't that I had more money in my bank account than any of my friends. It was that it helped with my confidence, actually. That was the biggest thing that helped short term. Long term, it laid the foundation for me to start tackling other challenges.
Okay, wow. And, you know, kind of like myself, when I was going through a personal growth phase and realizing, you know, my purpose and a lot of the passions that I have, I started to get more excited, right? Like I started to get more excited for, like, you know, you start thinking, wow, oh, if I did this and do this, you know, I can have this and that. You start kind of like vision casting,
visualize,
right?
Yep.
How do you visualize a lot?
It's the thing I'm best at, and the reason it's the thing I'm best at is because I genuinely believe I was put on this earth to be the CEO of a company.
Wow.
And the reason that I say that is because the number one job of a CEO is to be a vision caster. What good is a CEO if all they can do is program? What good is a CEO if all they can do is recruit?
Yeah.
You can hire people that can do that. The thing that's in short supply is people that can build a vision and command that vision and encourage people to follow them. A leader can't lead something if they don't have followers.
Wow.
So it's very important for young entrepreneurs and leaders to understand how to develop a vision that is emotional and visceral, not just I want to change the world. Okay, why? I want to change the world because when I was 6 years old, I saw a homeless guy, and for whatever reason, it just made me break down and cry. And now I want to make a nonprofit and go help homeless people. That's a vision.
Yeah, kind of like what you were telling me the other night. You know, it has to hit deep in the core.
It's got to hit you. It can't just be one of these sterile things that these Fortune 500 companies do of, we want to change the world because that's the right thing to do. It's a lot, especially for like us startup guys who are young. It has to be visceral.
Yeah. I like what you said to me the other day. You know, you talked about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and you said, you know, it gives people the opportunity to escape slave mentality, right?
Yeah.
Can you kind of touch on that a little bit?
Sure. So there's a very big problem in our culture that people go to school and they're being trained to be factory workers. They're not being trained to be innovators. You go to school and what do all day? You sit around and you sit around and you wait for people to give you something to do. Well, that works for a lot of people, but if you're trying to be entrepreneurial, which I think a large portion of your audience is, which I think is one of the best things you can do at our age. I'm 20, you're 21, 22? You're 21, I think that's the best thing that people our age can do is be entrepreneurial. The thing about entrepreneurship is it is the antithesis of the way you're taught in school. In school, you're taught to sit down and do this vocabulary packet. In school, you're taught to sit down and translate the Spanish into English. Okay. You're not taught to go build something for 3 years, and if it doesn't work, your life falls apart. You're not taught that. First of all, you're told what to do. You're not telling other people what to do. You're also not at a risk. If you fail, you'll get picked back up. Well, the real world isn't like that. The real world is if you screw up, there are consequences. And you don't learn those two things in school. And people love to bash on school. I'm not in any way saying that this is something that school necessarily should do. However, this is something that we have to understand that we need to work on as young adults and society.
And I kind of think like, you know, a lot of people leave college, right? And they don't know how to be an entrepreneur, they don't know how to take a lead. Like what would you kind of say to them, right? Would you say they have to like, you know, if they don't have Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, like what would you say can help them escape that slave mentality in a sense? Well,
so Bitcoin and cryptocurrency are just one way to deal with this. I think the reason I like Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies is there's many reasons. This is just one of them, but this does play into it. I think when people start building something that they are actually proud of, and when there's risk involved, that's very important, they mature a lot. It's very difficult for someone who's had the cushiest life to understand what it's like to be rock bottom. So when someone's seen rock bottom, they realize, wait a minute, I need to make sure I do a good job here because there are consequences for me messing up. And that's what I think people ought to do, actually, is that people need to put themselves in positions that are dangerous.
Like they kind of, you know...
I'm not saying go out there and like try and fight a lion, but I am saying take a little bit of risk.
It's like that story of, I forgot who was the conqueror or the invader. I think it's like Alexander Cortez, where he went to an island full of like Native Americans and he came to attack the island or whatever. And when he got to the island, he burned all the ships, right? He's like, there's no going back. We have to win.
Exactly. I'm glad you said that. Yeah, that's how it was for me, is that I had to make it work. And when you have to make it work, it has a funny way of working out.
That's so true, right? You just say like, put everything on, like
when
I
there's no way.
everything to it, right? and you just put it all on the line. I think that's so true, man. That's so true.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're monetizing YouTube. Your YouTube is growing a little bit, getting some more followers. Okay, so where did you get the vision for starting your own, company? And when did you start thinking like big scale like that? Like, I want to have a company.
So right around the time that I started, right around the time that I got into cryptocurrency, I started also researching a lot about entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Because it lit a fire in me. I realized that there was an ability for me to do something big with my life. And and you have to understand, I have to start with why I started all this. I started this simply to help my dad. And people ask me, Jeb, did you start this for the money? No. Like, don't get me wrong, it's lucrative, but I didn't, it doesn't mean that much to me. I don't believe that we ought to live our lives in pursuit of material possessions. Because while it's nice to reward ourselves with that, I don't think there's anything wrong with rewarding yourself. Living your life for something other than the Lord is not going to lead you anywhere that you want to be. That is even very applicable for non-Christian followers. Be careful about following just material things.
Yeah.
You will regret it, but it might take you a few decades to find out. You don't want to wait that long. I wanted to help my dad, and I realized after that, I was like, wait a minute. Where I am, the positioning I'm in, positioning is so important. The position that I'm in, I can help a lot more people than just dad. So I started thinking global, and I started following some of these big YouTubers that a lot of your followers probably know. Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, Ty Lopez, Alex Becker, Graham Stephan, all these guys. I watched every video every one of these guys ever made. I remember for 3 months, I would sit in my room, and I would watch Grant Cardone videos all day long. I saw every video he ever made. He's got 12 years of content. He's got 4,000 views, and I've seen almost every one of them.
Wow.
Now, a lot of people will disagree with Grant Cardone, and they say he's full of himself. Yeah, he's full of himself. But at the end of the day, he's worth $1 billion for a reason.
Yeah.
I don't agree with everything he says, don't get me wrong in the slightest. But there's something about building a vision in yourself, saying, this is where I think I can go. Let's think, is this actually reasonable? Is it possible that I could do what he did? Well, he started where I started. He didn't even have the internet. Okay, then it must be possible for me. Let's go do it.
Okay.
But the important thing is it has to be emotional. It can't be too logical. You have to, if you're not getting fired up about it, you'll never put the work it requires in.
So it can't be too logical. What do you mean by it can't be too logical?
You're never
you and taking this time to work on yourself. And I mean, we hear that work on yourself. And the reason why I asked you, how do you plan on doing that is because I feel like a lot of people, they're at the same point as you are, have to heal from some things, but they don't know how. Like, how would you advise for them to be able to, to overcome those things and start working on
that's a great question. And there's several things I want to touch on in what you just said, because you set that up so well. Number one, there are a lot of things you can teach yourself. I taught myself the violin, I taught myself piano, but the problem is I'm not very good at them.
Yeah.
So this is not something, mental health, mental health is not something you want to try and teach yourself.
Yeah.
It's better than nothing. I've taught myself plenty of things. It's better than nothing. Mental health is something you want to get counseling for. Have a professional talk to you about it. It's the same thing with running my business. I don't want to run my business and try and figure it out all out on my own. Everything I know, I taught myself, which means that there's a lot of holes in it. And the point you made of being self-aware is actually really cool, because I'm going to a meeting with other business owners in town tomorrow, and in the readings from that meeting, one of the things they pointed out is that the top skill set for an executive to have, specifically a CEO, is to be self-aware. It said it in the paper, it's over there in my office, it's a self-awareness. And I was like, well, duh. But it's cool to bring it up here, because I just read it in that. It's so important to be self-aware, and too many people let pride blind them. The first scripture I memorized is Matthew 23:12. He who humbles himself will be exalted, he who exalts himself will be humbled. What that means in modern English is if you exalt yourself and you build yourself up and you pump yourself up, who else is going to pump you up? Because you're already doing all of it for yourself. You're going to get knocked down, because if you say, I'm going to pick the seat at the head of the table, well, you know what, the guy that owns the house is going to walk in and say you're in my seat. But if you sit at the lowest seat in the table, then they're going to say, you shouldn't be sitting over there. You're an esteemed guest, come sit next to us. If you exalt yourself, you're going to be humbled. But if you humble yourself, you're going to be exalted. And if you start from a position of humility, you will go much farther in life than many of these people on Instagram that think, I'm going to flex. I'm going to show off my fat stacks. Well, you know what? A lot of people don't think that's a lot of money. I'm just going to be honest with you. There's plenty of people that are laughing at you right now if you think $500 is a lot of money. people are too prideful nowadays because we have this flex culture. And everybody thinks, if I can flex what I've done in the last month, I'll be great. Well, there's a lot of people out there who have been working their tail off for 40 years and they think they look like a fool. And you're never going to get to where they are if you are living like them now.
Yeah.
Too many people start with pride. Take pride in your accomplishments, not in the things you haven't done yet. Be humble and realize that you have much to learn, especially if you're our age.
Yeah.
That's so important.
That's really right.
You have to start with humility.
Yeah. That's really true. I remember, compared to football, right? I feel like football, you can relate a lot of things.
Oh, yeah, I think so too.
Right? And so I remember, you know, I'm working so hard this off-season, getting ready to come back for, because our season was canceled, so it's just...
Yeah, it's like a test.
coming back to practice, right?
Yeah.
Getting ready to come back to school, we're going to have fall practice, not fall season, fall practice. And I remember I'm coming in, you know, I'm running all my routes, and I just been coming to shit. Like, I just feel like I put in so much work, right? I'm like, I put myself in the head chair, right? I'm like, wow, you know,
look at me.
You know what I'm saying? Like, kind of like I put in all this work, you know, I have all this self-belief. And I remember something happened between me and my receiver coach, and you know, my receiver coach said, we got in a little argument, and he pulled me to the side, and he was like, you want to go to the NFL? And I was like, you know, yeah, I'm going to go to the NFL, you already know. You know what I'm saying? He said, all right, you have to be like a ball to play.
Yeah.
You have to be ready to be molded. You know what I'm saying?
That.
You can't.
Like
how do you want to go to the NFL? You're not ready to be molded, right? I thought I was already molded. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that was kind of like I took a seat back in the lower chair and I realized, wow.
Yeah.
When I look at it like this, there's so much more that I can do. There's so much more that I can achieve. Whereas you just look at it as like, I know everything, right? It limits you. You know?
It does, and it's something that a lot of people struggle with because we live in a culture of entitlement.
Yeah.
And I talk about the culture we live in so much because it's the zeitgeist that we grow up in, and it's really dangerous when you grow up that way because it's when everybody has the same disease, no one thinks they're sick.
Yeah.
Everybody has the disease of entitlement. Everybody has the disease of pride, and nobody thinks they're sick because everybody around them has it too.
Yeah. That's
the only problem is that you all have it. You're all sick. You're like, oh, I'm going to compare myself to that. Well, there's no one good to compare to because we're all sick.
That's the word.
And we all struggle with that to certain degrees, and no one's perfect in that, but a lot of people are very bad about it. And you know how good it feels when you're sitting at the lower seat and somebody invites you to the upper seat? But you know how bad it feels when somebody says, get the hell out of my seat?
Hey, man.
That's a quick way to get...
I'm a good visualizer, so like I always visualize situations. And,
I always tell people, I told you this once off camera, if you have to brag about something, that's obviously not worth bragging about because it would have spoken for itself.
That's true.
If you need to go and brag about something, then clearly your results aren't speaking for themselves and you need to work harder.
Wow.
If you're really trying to get yourself to a position where people will look up to you because of your achievements, have something that people will brag about for you. Let your reputation precede yourself. You shouldn't have to go around and you know, like pat yourself on the back. You ought to have people doing it for you if it's really that cool.
Yeah, wow, that's good. You know, so back to, you know, your business, right? We talked about, you know, you're going to spend this time working on your mental health because you feel like that's a huge area for you to grow and get to where you want to become. That's something you need to, you know, achieve and really accomplish within yourself. You know, I know there's a lot of other young entrepreneurs listening to this, right? And we always talk about, you know, building a business, right? And you talked about like the most important part of your business is the CEO. Like you are the CEO. And with that being said, the CEO is like that's your brand, right?
Yeah.
It's your personal brand.
Especially for the personal brand that we're running, yeah.
And you know, you were talking about cryptocurrency and your Bitcoin company, and you said you had someone reach out to you on YouTube and was like, yo, like you guys, like you saved my life, right? Like you wouldn't expect that from a cryptocurrency Bitcoin company, right?
I know.
So like you're more than just Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, right? Can you kind of talk about like what more are you to other people?
Yeah, well, you know, the reason that I think we've gotten along so well is because I love the idea of Thank Gold. Great merch, by the way. You guys gotta get some. This is awesome. But Thank Gold is a really great name because it is saying fix your mindset and make it golden is essentially what that's saying. And that's something that is so very important is that people focus on their mindset. And people need to, one of the foundations of your mindset is asking the question why. I think the question why can change the world. It's the complete foundation of science. These smartphones we have would not exist without the question why. That one word built all of modern civilization, and here we are thinking it doesn't mean anything. If you want to do anything in life, find out the reason why you're doing it. So for young entrepreneurs, it's very important to understand why you're doing something. So when we got that email from that person that was saying that, it was a very long email. They detailed their entire backstory. It was 2 years ago, guys, so forgive me that I don't remember all the details. This person Unfortunately, I don't believe their mother was in the picture. I think they were deceased. The father was on drugs.
Wow.
Little brother was injured in some way, like horribly injured.
Wow.
Couldn't take care of him. This guy that emailed me, the only way that anything was ever going to change in his life is if either there was a miracle that happened, which they do happen, or that he figured out how to get himself out of that situation. Because at the end of the day, sometimes you got to realize the cavalry ain't coming. And you got to just do it yourself.
Yeah.
And he's not, this kid that messaged me is my age. He's not old. He was telling me basically the same story I went through. Now, I didn't have anywhere near as bad as he did. But he straight up told me, he said, Jeb, I was going to commit suicide.
Wow.
And I started watching your videos, and I learned about cryptocurrency, and because you introduced me to Bitcoin, I figured out cryptocurrency, I started trading, made a little money, and started helping my family.
Yeah.
And by the way, the first thing I have to say is that I don't in any way take ownership of him not killing himself, and I actually don't tell the story very often specifically because I don't want people to think that's what I'm saying. The reason I mentioned that, the reason I told you that, is because when you're trying to ask the question why, and you receive an email like that, you found your answer. You know what? That dude might not be here right now. But me making my videos, if it can do to one person what Crypto Nick did for me, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Wow, that's amazing, man. And that's why I think of like just companies, right? You think of any company, right? They're always more than just the product, right? And they're always trying to sell.
Any successful company.
Yeah, any successful one, right? Like every company will advertise them as more than just their product. Like I think it's about emotion, right? Like we live in a world that's based off emotion. Like what emotion am I trying to make you feel, right? And that's kind of like thing gold. Like I want to fill people up with that emotion is like you can achieve anything you want. You can you constantly can keep achieving, right? It doesn't stop. You know, your mind is limitless, right? And so there's so much that you can accomplish. And so yeah, I mean you're 20 years old right now, man. You're 20 years old. Kind of talk about where you're at right now with your business, right? Like how well are you doing right now? Kind of put that into perspective.
Sure, yeah, because we've been kind of nebulous about everything.
They're probably like, who are you? You know?
Yeah,
what was this guy?
So a little bit of backstory. We run the Crypto Jeb YouTube channel. We're about to pass 60,000 subscribers more than likely in the next couple of days. We've been running it for 3 years. So November 16th, which was a month ago, was the third birthday of the channel. We have 6 employees right now, including myself, because I'm W-2'd also. I draw a paycheck also. So it's myself, Shannon, Gia, Zach, Dasa, and Taylor. So, and we're also looking into hiring a couple of new employees, namely another editor, CFO, and more than likely a scriptwriter in the next couple of months. So we rented an office downtown, about 1,600 square feet. We're in the middle of building a second studio right now. Bought a bunch of camera gear, just pretty much having fun and putting it on YouTube. It really is kind of let me back up and be very careful with my words, because at this point in my life I have authority and I need to be careful with how I say things. I was about to say it's like the dream life. No, I take that back. It's not. People think that having a bunch of money and having cool cameras and camera gear and employees and businesses is so cool. It's really cool. Don't get me wrong. I like it.
But it's work.
But number one, it's work. You got to work a tail off. But number two, it's also, at the end, I just want people to understand this, because I don't want people getting into entrepreneurship thinking that it's going to change everything about their life. In the fact that it's not going to change everything 100%. It's going to change your finances if you do well, maybe 90%. But it might only do 20% of your relationships, or it might be negative 20%. It might hurt your relationships. Just making a bunch of money isn't the only thing you need in your life. So I'm kind of going off topic.
No,
but
you're good.
I think it's really important that people understand that entrepreneurship is definitely something that if you're the right person for it, then and you want to do it, go for it. But I think a lot of people put it on a pedestal and think it's the be all end all. It's not.
Yeah. I think it just goes back to, is your why. Do you have a why that's supporting why you're doing it? And I think that's going to be the title of this podcast. Know your why.
I think that's a great title.
So yeah, I mean, you're 20 years old, you're the head of your company, right? How does that dynamic work? Because I'm sure at 20 years old, there's all these stereotypes of, you're 20 years old, I'm sure you're probably in a position right now where some of your employees are older than you, right?
Yeah.
How do you work to...
I think I'm actually the youngest employee in my own company.
Wow. At 20 years old, man, how do you work to overcome those stereotypes, right?
So that's a great question.
Even in those awkward scenarios, right? Like, how do you...
That's a great question, and that's something I've kind of been learning in the last 3 months. We moved into our office, and I hired 5 new employees in September. So we moved into the office 4 months ago. It was just myself and an editor up until then, and then we had a crazy month, and we've been having crazy months for 6 months or so. I'm like, we need to go to the next level. This is where we want to go. So when I moved in, we have some neighbors and they work with the University of Florida football team. And the two people that run it, I guess you'd call it the business owner and the operations manager, office manager, whatever, Alex and Corey, they're both probably in their mid-late 30s. So we were moving in, and they're asking me questions like, okay, so you like got some furniture or something? I was like, yeah, it's being shipped in. And they're like, they like walked in our office like the first week, and it's a damn mess because there are boxes all over the place and all kinds of cardboard, and they're like, it is a mess. And they just kind of gave me the side eye, and they're like, well, if you need anything, let us know. It was so funny.
Yeah,
but
they had that suspicion on their face.
Yeah, they're a little suspicious.
But it's a cartel.
Yeah, seriously, that thing is a drug, like a money laundering thing. Yeah. But no, the way that I've dealt with it is, like I said, I believe, if I'm remembering right, all of my employees at the moment are older than me. I believe that's true. Yeah. So the way that works is that in my founding team, instead of I try and stick to a philosophy of don't work with friends. I don't like mixing work with friendships. The reason is because when you get in a work relationship with someone and you're in a friendship relationship with someone, never should the two cross lest something bad happen. So when you're in a work relationship with friends, you have to understand that the friendship might end at any time because people are volatile. Yeah. And that's happened already. We've already unfortunately lost one employee who I was very close friends with and who doesn't talk to me anymore. Yeah. It's already happened, and it was very sad. It happened a couple of months ago.
I'm sorry about that.
But that's something you have to go into understanding is that there's going to be risk involved. And I decided to go ahead and hire my founding crew from people that I knew in my own network, because I also, while I believe I want to keep my work and my friendship and my family life separate as much as possible, I also believe that everything's united under God, so that does help pull everything together. But even more importantly, I believe a team of 6 people who love each other, who go out and drink or don't, because 20, or spend time on the weekends together and have fun together, and they work well together and they're bought into the same vision. I believe that a 6-man team with $0 will go a lot farther than 6 people with all the funding in the world, but they have no direction, they have no vision, they have no dynamic of cooperation. Because I'll be honest with you, that dynamic of people being older than me and working for me as a 20-year-old, yeah, that would not have gone very well if I didn't know these people. But now that we've got 6 employees, we had 7, but one of our guys left to work for the church, and it worked out very well. He felt like the Lord was calling to do that, and I agreed with him. That dynamic works out because I had intentionality with what I was doing. Yeah. A lot of people, unfortunately, just make a decision to make a decision. Yeah. They don't think about it. Well, I thought about it. I said, it's going to be easier to find people to work for me that are in my network. Yeah. But 2, the dynamic is going to be that the foundation laying of company culture is going to be much easier if I already know these people, and I don't have to figure out who they are in the office. Okay. So I was going to say y'all entrepreneurs, but even myself, like, what advice would you give myself for, like, I'm trying to build a team, and I'm trying to build a team around me. Like, what advice would you give me? Study sales. Study sales. Study sales. And the reason you need to study sales is because when you figure out your why and you're visceral about it, and you're from a lot farther on that than most people. Yeah. So I think you're doing great, by the way. When you have your why, which, by the way, you never stop developing that. That's an iterative thing. Your why needs to be sold. I learned sales because I'm the executive of a company and we sell a product, and I'm also a YouTuber, which means that you're selling people on why they should click on the video and why they should keep watching the video and why they should subscribe. So my job is sales. I'm a salesman. It's why I'm pretty good at communicating for having the little experience that I do. You need to learn sales. And the reason is because to build a team, people don't want to work for money. People don't work for me because I pay them well. I do pay them well. Don't get me wrong. I pay everybody in my company very well for what they're doing, considering their experience level. Most of them are learning half of what they know how to do on the job, which is not what most companies would do. I did that on purpose. That was a conscious decision because I had sold them a why and a vision. If you know sales, number one, that's how you build a business, is sales. Without a sales team, businesses don't exist. They're just a bunch of people getting together and not making any money because there's no money coming in. So sales is very important since you're the executive of Think Gold, the CEO of Think Gold. The other reason why it's very important is because if you're trying to build a team around you, you have to be very good at selling vision. And that has to do with how you talk, that has to do with how you present things, that has to do with how prepared you are, that has to do with that vision, how you talk. There's so much that goes into that, but sales in general is the best umbrella term I can give you to answer that question. No, that's a great answer. You basically
have to believe in yourself, right?
Yeah.
To be able to sell your product.
Nobody's going to be confident in you if you're not confident in yourself.
Amen.
3 years ago, I didn't get lunch when I was dual enrolled in college in 12th grade because I was too scared to go through the subway line. I was that socially awkward. I would go hungry. I'm still fixing the hunger problems I have. You know how many days I just sit here and I'm like, oh, I'm not hungry, I'm fine. Because I'd skip lunch half of my childhood because I was socially awkward. I didn't want to go through the lunch line. Me being able to communicate well and interact with people that I don't know did not come easily. Don't think it did. This is not natural.
That's so good to hear. You know what I'm saying? So it's not something you're born with.
No, I'm naturally a very anxious, unconfident, antisocial person.
Wow.
And don't get me wrong, having a couple extra zeros in my bank account and having some subscribers helps.
Yeah.
But that's not the only thing. There are plenty of people that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars and have no confidence in themselves. It's learning to be confident in yourself is a foundational principle of entrepreneurship. If you're not confident in yourself and your vision, no one else will be either.
Yeah, man.
That's why the best salesmen actually use the product they're selling. That's it. The guy down at the Toyota dealership that's trying to sell you a new Tacoma, you think he drives a Ford? He's going to be trying to sell you a Ford.
Yeah.
He's going to be trying to sell you what he uses because he knows it's good because he's confident in his product. Your why is your product. If you're not confident in it, you can't sell it.
That's good, man. That's good. So let's kind of switch gears. Let's go back into Bitcoin, right?
Sure.
Why is investing in Bitcoin a smart move?
Because I genuinely believe that Bitcoin is the future of currency and the future of inflation hedging. So what we were talking about earlier is the two of the basic pillars that are easy to describe to newcomers of cryptocurrency and why it's important. Because people ask me the question all the time, why Bitcoin? A lot of people try to say, well, Bitcoin is this, Bitcoin is that. No, you need to say two things. And I tell my contemporaries in the cryptocurrency space, stop trying to complicate it, say these two things, they can learn the rest of it as they go. Number one is decentralized. No central authority can come in and tyrannize Bitcoin. The federal government, I'm not going to get into the math and why this is possible, but if you want to go research it, you'll find it's true. The federal government of the United States of America can't shut down Bitcoin.
How?
You'd have to shut down the entire internet. Because how am I going to go around to every single person on the planet that has a ledger of Bitcoin and get rid of it? There's like 50 million I don't know the number, so don't quote me on that. There's at least 10 million Bitcoin wallets.
How would you go about creating a Bitcoin? You said that, that...
Well, let me finish answering your first question because that's really important. So number one is decentralized in that it's decentralized because everybody is in charge of it, which means no central authority is in charge of it, meaning that Bitcoin cannot be used as a tool of despotic tyrants. In the same way the United States dollar can be used.
Okay, that's some big words there.
So that's very important. To boil that down, the United States dollar was created by the U.S. government, right?
Yeah.
So that means the U.S. government has control over the U.S. dollar. Well, what is the entire world economy based on? The U.S. dollar.
Yeah.
Every other country on the planet is not based on gold like it should be.
Really?
We went off the gold standard decades ago.
Yeah.
It should be based on gold, but it's not. That's inflation. I'm not going to get into that.
Dollar,
it's based off the U.S. dollar. Every other currency on the planet is based in a large part off of the U.S. dollar, which means that the U.S. dollar has hegemony over the rest of the world economy. You can't do that with Bitcoin. Wow. And I'm not saying that the U.S. has been a good or a bad steward of that power, but the fact is they have that power and it's a potential that they could be a bad steward of it, and that's dangerous. Bitcoin being decentralized removes that possibility. So the second reason why Bitcoin is so important is because it's non-inflationary. The West African slave trade started with a hyperinflationary currency crisis. So that in English means the West African slave trade that resulted in untold travesties and the effects of which we're still feeling today started when the Portuguese and other European nations started sailing south. They went down to the West African coast. In those areas, they were using something called agri-beads as currency. They were little glass beads, like you might see on a necklace. A lot of times they wore on a necklace. They were glass beads. Glass-making technology wasn't widespread in the region, which meant that glass beads could not be produced in the region, which means that those glass beads retained their value. If both of us have $10, and that's all the money in existence, and then all of a sudden I get $20 extra, then you don't have half of my value, you have a quarter of my value because I just made money out of thin air. It devalued all of our money. Yeah. If all of a sudden the world goes from having $20 to $40, every dollar is worth half as much. That's called inflation. And that's very dangerous. What happened in West Africa is those tribes and those kingdoms and those areas that based their currency on agri-beads, it worked very well until the Europeans filled ships full of glass beads, sailed them down the coast, creating currency out of thin air.
Wow.
Essentially, the late Middle Ages equivalent of what's the word I'm looking for? Making money that you're not supposed to.
Fraud?
Fraud. Sure. We'll say fraud. You know the word I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Anyway, they took those ships full of glass beads down to the coast and started buying slaves with them.
Wow.
And what they did is that they used that to buy the slaves and to buy up other resources in the region. When they flooded the market with glass beads, it made every other glass bead in the region worth less.
Yeah.
Because if there's 10,000 glass beads, each glass bead is worth 1/10,000th of the total supply. All of a sudden, there's 100 million glass beads. Every glass bead is worth less. There's not more resources, there's more currency. That's called inflation.
Yeah.
Bitcoin cannot do that because Bitcoin is coded in such a way that there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin created.
Wow.
The same thing that caused that crisis and many other in the history of the world, the same thing that led to the downfall of the Roman Republic, it was a currency crisis. Bitcoin is the first technology in the history of mankind that makes that impossible.
Wow.
And the only other thing that's come close is actually gold.
Wow. Wow. So, there's a lot of college students, young people listening to this.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we start? If we find this interesting,
Sure.
Where do we start? Where is a good, starting point for it?
Sure. I think YouTube's a great place to start. Ivan on Tech, the Moon, his name's Carl. Those are great YouTube channels to start. It's really good to read up on news stories.
Your YouTube channel?
Or mine.
Plug us in real
Or
quick.
mine, Crypto Jeb, if you guys want to follow me on YouTube.
Okay.
Crypto Jeb, Jebb, Crypto, CRYPTO.
Okay, I'll put that in the bio as well, along with your social media stuff too.
Awesome, I appreciate that.
They'll find you.
Yeah, it's good to start there, and then also you can start reading articles on Cointelegraph, CoinDesk, several other places. It's really just kind of the way that I like to learn things. It's not just I'm going to go here and learn it. If you're going to school or something, I'm not going to get into college because we'll be here all day about college. It's not as simple as say I'm going to go here and learn it.
Yeah.
If you're trying to teach yourself, if you're learning from someone, it's different. It's more this goes into the question of research. If you're trying to learn something, the best thing you can do is start asking the question why. Or start asking the question how. Or start asking the question what. What is a blockchain? Why is Bitcoin valuable? How does Bitcoin work? Just type those questions into Google.
Yeah.
And then one answer will lead you to 3 questions. Keep asking questions. Just ask questions. Be curious.
I feel like you're like me in that sense, right? Because, I always, when someone comes to me, like a friend, right, with this business idea, I always ask them, why are you doing that? How is this going to happen? And I always make them think of, kind of like, what are the potential, you have to look at the potential, what's the word? The potential obstacles, right? You always gotta look at the potential obstacles. And even with ourselves, right, as, inspiring entrepreneurs and you're a CEO, like, we have to ask ourselves those questions, right? We have to be that one voice of reason of like, what if this goes wrong? What are the potential obstacles? And you have to kind of see it in advance, right? To be able to overcome those. And so I think that's very big. It goes back to being self-aware. But we always end every gold episode with these 3 questions.
Okay.
And I added another question on there, right? So it's fill in the blank questions right here. All right. My greatest joy is
The Lord.
the Lord. Our greatest battle is
Ourselves.
ourselves. The world needs
The Lord.
Okay, last question for you. Hypothetical question.
Okay.
So say you had like an out-of-body experience, right? Oh no, say you had an out-of-body experience, right? Say say it's your high school graduation, right?
Okay. I'm there.
And you're having an out-of-body experience, and you're that ghost, right?
Yeah.
What would you tell your high school self as you're getting on the podium, ready to embrace this future? Like, what advice would you give your high school self?
I'm gonna give you 2 answers. One for the Christians in the room, and I'm gonna give another answer that's a little more worldly. Number 1 is I was an agnostic at the time. I would say stop. So that's the first answer. But the second answer, and the answer that I think more people will be interested in, is one thing. It's a good question. Tough questions are often good questions.
Yeah.
One thing is the question why, but I was very scientific minded. I wanted to go into astrophysics when I was a kid, so I was already very good at the question why. I think what I would probably tell myself is just confidence isn't just having confidence that you're attractive enough to get a girl's number. That's what people think when they think confidence. Confidence, when I say confidence, and when the world says confidence, is have confidence in your vision. If you have a vision that you want to build a big podcast, or you want to build a big YouTube channel, or you want to build a big company, and you genuinely, in your heart of hearts, believe that it is being done for the right reason, and your heart of hearts might be wrong. So make sure it's right first, which can take you your whole lifetime.
Yeah.
But if you genuinely believe that you're doing it for the right reasons, have confidence that if you work hard enough, it'll pay off. That's why people jump ship and they do Shopify, Amazon FBA, podcasting, YouTube, Instagram, personal brands. That's why they do 8 different businesses, because they've been told the lie that millionaires have 7 streams of income, so I need to start 7 businesses. That's bull. That's a load of crap. You need to do one thing and you need to stick with it. Because one thing will lead you to where you want to go. How does a tree grow? A tree grows tall and then it grows wide. It doesn't grow with 7 different tree trunks. It grows with one trunk and then it grows wide. So I would tell myself, pick a goal, a long-term goal. In this case, for me, it happened to be the channel and the business I'm running. And have confidence that if you work your tail off every day, it'll end up happening. And don't stop. Because too many people think, this didn't work. I've been doing this for 2 months. I've been doing this for 4 months. I've been doing this for 6 months. By the way, I'm not telling you that if you're doing something stupid that you just working your ass off is going to fix it. Because if you're digging a ditch and you're trying to become a millionaire, it ain't going to work. So I'm not saying be stupid and just work hard. But I am saying
apply all the things we've talked about.
If you genuinely think that you're doing it for the right reasons, number one, and that you're doing the right thing, I was like, well, I saw this dude making $250,000 a month. I know I can do something. So I knew it. It was proven. The market was proven. If I genuinely believe I'm doing it, number one, for the right reasons. Because the market does reward good people. People think millionaires are greedy, and they're not necessarily. Normally, they're very generous, actually. And number two, you know that you're doing the right thing to get the goal that you want. Don't quit. I stop giving up so quickly and have confidence and have faith in the process.
That's a word. That's a word, man. Well, Jeb, appreciate you coming on the podcast, bro.
Good having me. Good having me, man. And thank you for having me.
I was know this is gonna be a very popular episode. Alright, this might be the most popular episode we've done. But yeah, man, we're gonna end it on that phrase. Bingo, baby.
Bingo.